So some of you have been asking me, how do you stress test your agent to make sure that you patch up every single possible mistake it could make on a phone call, so that when you deploy it to your actual customer list and when it talks to your actual customers, you minimize burnt leads as much as possible. So there are two ways to do it. Really, one I personally prefer because it is really the best way to fine tune, although it's not as scalable, which is essentially just going to be manually talking to the agent. I'm not going to dive into the prompt I've made specifically, but in the last video, I showed you how do you stress test agents by manually talking to it. It might have been actually a video I haven't uploaded yet, but I've been talking to developers and I've got early access into a software that really allows me to not necessarily fine-tune it to that 99%, because the only way to get there really for me personally is I manually test my bots, I manually talk to them, I know exactly which words to fine-tune and how to break it until it stops breaking. But to find that final 5% of instances, of sentences that break it, you can use simulation. So Vocera, I've been working with them hand in hand. They've actually developed a really substantial platform so far, and we've worked together to develop some metrics and personas. So they've helped me set up the metrics right here, and then I've really populated them with the exact metrics that really hard test and stress test any agent out there. And I've made these so you can also copy these, by the way, because I've made them essentially evergreen. And what I mean by that is, regardless of what the industry is, regardless if your agent is even outbound or inbound, these metrics and these calculations are essentially going to help you really stress test your agent to the fullest. So the first one that I really like to stress test is going to be no objection or question verbatim repetition. So if you have a script that your agent is following, obviously you can use it to answer the objection or the question once. But where most agents actually struggle with a lot is if they're faced a similar objection or a question, or even the same one, they take that same script and read it again, which one is a dead giveaway that is just an AI and is not well developed, and two, it's not very naturally sounding. So you need to make sure that you monitor constantly every single time how your AI answers the objection and question, and it cannot be verbatim with the same words. So if you just want to dive in, if you guys, let me show you, because this is going to be really helpful for you. So you define the metric, right? So what I've written here is the metric passes if the main agent, which is, by the way that Vocera labels your agent and labels their AI simulation persona agents that call your agent, is your agent is called main agent. Their agents that call and attack your agent is going to be called testing agents. So the main agent, your bot, did not repeat the same answer verbatim if it was asked the same or similar question again. The main agent did not repeat. I'm not going to make this video too long because I really want you guys to just kind of, take a screenshot. But essentially, these are the metrics, these are the qualifiers. Now, binary qualitative, the metric types are actually really important to nail down right. So with the simplest explanation possible, just for you guys that want to get into stress testing immediately, is if you think a condition must absolutely be met on every single phone call, you would select binary workflow adherence, which means it would be an example where you would say, if your goal on that phone call is to collect an email, then you will define this metric. For this metric to pass, the agent must ask and collect the email. If it doesn't happen, then this metric will fail. If it succeeds and passes, then if they ask for the email, then it succeeds and passes. So it's really a yes or a no. Did it happen or did it not happen? That's binary workflow adherence. Now, binary qualitative is something that should happen on the call, but it can be steps, right? So, for example, if you are asking, if the flow of the conversation, this is really for steps. So if your first step is ask for the name, if step number 2 in the prompt you're using is drum up interest and sell the service or the product, and then step 3 is book in the calendar meeting, then that is essentially binary qualitative. So all the steps must be true for this metric to pass. If you just have one condition, again, either use this one or this one, which I'm about to get into. But if you have steps, then you use binary qualitative. Now, continuous qualitative is something that the agent has to meet to some extent on every single call, but there's no necessary amount of instances where that something has to be met. So for instance, things like, has the agent maintained empathy? Was the agent professional? Did the agent ask questions, and did the agent give answers that would signal to the person that they understood the question, that they acknowledged what they said? Did they empathize and sympathize with them? It's essentially a score from 0 to 100. So if it's empathy, which I have said it, is going to give me a score from 0 to 100, how well or how empathetic that agent was, okay? So another big thing is, guys, you need to measure your latency, because latency, me personally, if it's beyond 1 second and 150 milliseconds, I immediately drop everything and start fixing it, because you want to keep latency low. If latency is high, the whole agent breaks. And this is why, the platform I use to build my agents, whether it's inbound or outbound, it's really focused on latency first, then naturality and how natural the voice sounds. Very literally such a close second that the difference between the 1 and the 2 is a millimeter. And then number 3 is how smart the large language model is, that then encompasses the decision making. Okay, so that's the metrics. The test nets is actually very simple. So the test nets is going to be, once you build a metric, you gotta instruct the agent or the software to show it examples whether that metric has been failing or meeting. So what I mean by that is, if you take a look right here, I've already have these instances. So you could feed conversations of with a lead or with yourself, where you can listen to the call and say, okay, adaptive questioning was met. Not all the questions were answered, so you would mark it as false. Was the call transferred? False. No, it's false. If the call was transferred, then yes. So things like that. Now the personality, this is something that I've really spent a lot of time talking to the team about, because you need to find the best personalities and the most difficult personas to stress test your agent based on the worst nightmare scenario leads that your client will have. So what I mean by that is, I started working with a plumbing company not so long ago, and now I recently signed on a client that provides AI systemization services to manufacturers. So how does that look like? How do the personas need to look like? So the way that the personas look like is going to be very different for every single industry. So for example, for my client in procurement is going to be someone who's a skeptic in AI. Another nightmare scenario would be someone who has trouble hearing, which is kind of like probably the biggest challenge for every AI agent out there. But the way that you build those agents, you factor that in and have a very professional way to ask to repeat that something. Now, again, a chatty skeptic is someone who interrupts a lot, impatient procurement pushback, language barrier. So you gotta stress test your agent for every single one of these scenarios that you have, because it's really important. And again, the way that you write the prompts is, you can even use ChatGPT to help you brainstorm, but I really recommend you to do what I do, is to sit down and manually really think about what would be the most difficult cases that are the most common. Verify that with the client so that the quality of your test is as high as possible, so that when you launch it to your clients' leads, you have the biggest amount of success and you bring the biggest amount of value with your agent to achieve your client's goals, whether it's selling a maintenance package, whether it's chasing estimates, whether it's booking more meetings to get more demos for the product they're trying to offer. You get the point. Like, your client's lead list is extremely valuable and you need to stress test your agent as much as possible. So now let's talk about the results. So Vocera does a great job with allowing me to deploy the simulations that attack or call my agent using these metrics. And once those calls conclude, then you will really be able to take a look how many metrics were met. So you can take a look right here. I started the test right here with 4 simulations and I scored 25% out of 100. So then I manually sat down, took that feedback, and then really made sure to patch up all the holes. Now I reran that simulation of 4 personas, same personas, and now I scored 100. So with every single stress test that you do, you gotta run, take the feedback, rerun that same simulation, and you wanna see the score improve. So right now I'm running 10 simulations and I've scored 60, so I'm continuing to refine and improve so that when the agent calls your customer list to chase loss estimates or book new HVAC maintenance jobs, repairs, drum up business during the shoulder season, whatever that is, they have the highest chance possible, because any question, any difficult persona, any difficult objection they've already heard, seen, and answered before, and the answers and behavior is calibrated to perfection. This is why I don't just build agents, I build top sales performers, closers, top elite dispatchers. They just happen to be AI. So that's the rundown. Observability is something that me and the team are working on already, but it's essentially going to be very similar to simulations. But as you continue to deploy the agent and you deploy it to real campaigns, real numbers, real leads, real people, you will also be able to track the metrics and the score. So if you guys are interested, Vocera is definitely a great way to scale your stress testing and truly ensure that, anyone who cares about their clients, anyone who cares about the quality of the agents, must absolutely use something like this. I still recommend manual testing, because ultimately these platforms won't necessarily have as much insight into all the possible things that could go wrong. And what I mean by that is, if an AI could definitely check for issues if they read the transcript, but if someone says, yes, I'm interested, and the difference between someone saying, yes, I'm interested, it's a world of a difference that only a human, at least for now, will be able to hear. And this is why, you cannot escape the hard work. I always say, you gotta put in the hours to make sure the agent gets really developed well for the client. But definitely for logical errors, for consistency, for latency, for logical reasoning and professionalism in terms of the verbiage, this is a great tool to test. I've been using it very intensively to launch my agents and schedule appointments for my clients using the AI successfully, and I definitely recommend it. So one of the tools in my tool belt, one out of many.